Blood rushed to my fingertips as I held my keycard in front of the hotel entrance. The same hotel I owned, the Grand Azure. My sister Vanessa blocked the door with a smug expression, clearly intent on keeping me out. Just beyond the glass, I could hear my father's booming laugh echoing through the opulent lobby. The same lobby I had designed myself. My hotel. And yet, I was being treated like an intruder. "You can't seriously think you're coming in," Vanessa said. Her voice dipped in disdain. She adjusted her imitation designer dress, one I recognized from a friend's fashion preview. "This is the Grand Azure. Ellie, the tasting menu alone costs more than you probably make in a month." If only she knew. I personally collaborated with the executive chef on that very menu. "He's my father too," I said calmly, clutching the small envelope in my purse. Inside was the deed to a luxury villa in Tuscany, one of the properties under my company's international hospitality wing. It had been meant as a birthday surprise for my father. "My full name is Eleanor. I'm 38 years old, and I built the Azure Hospitality Group from scratch. This is how I reclaimed my place in a family that forgot who I was, and tried to erase me from a hotel I created." Mom and Dad were very clear. Vanessa added, her tone sharp. "They only want successful, respectable people inside. No drama, no embarrassment." The irony made me want to laugh. Just yesterday, I finalized a $100 million resort expansion. But according to my family, I was still the black sheep, still the waitress who left the accounting firm in disgrace. 10 years ago, when I told them I was leaving to pursue hospitality management, my father nearly exploded. "No daughter of mine will serve tables." That's what he'd said, so I stopped telling them anything. I let them think I was struggling while I quietly became one of the most successful luxury hotel moguls in the country. Now here I was, being told I wasn't welcome in the very hotel that bore my brand. "Eleanor." My mother's voice sliced through the moment. She appeared behind Vanessa, frowning. "What are you doing here? We agreed you wouldn't come." "No." She had sent a message earlier. "Don't come to Dad's birthday. It's at the Grand Azure. You can't afford it. Don't embarrass us." "I brought a gift," I said, holding up the envelope. "What is it? A gift card to Olive Garden?" Vanessa sneered. "Or maybe some trinket from a discount rack?" My mother's eyes flicked to my clutch, clearly judging it. She had no idea the bag alone cost more than Vanessa's entire outfit. "Well," Mom said with a thin smile, "your sister's gift is more thoughtful. She just made junior partner." "You know." I knew. Her firm had been trying to negotiate a lease in one of my properties for weeks. "She's doing so well. Beautiful house. Fancy car. Perfect fiancé." My mother's gaze landed back on me. "And you, at least you're trying." Trying. I thought of my penthouse in Manhattan, my art collection, my Gulfstream jet. I had no need to try. "Yes, Mom, I'm trying," I replied flatly. "You could have at least worn something decent," Vanessa said. "This isn't a diner." I smoothed the fabric of my custom black silk dress, designed in Paris, the same designer Vanessa begged for an appointment with last month, and was turned away. "It's the best I could do," I said softly. "Well, you're not coming in," Vanessa snapped. "The entire VIP floor is reserved for family and important guests." The VIP floor, my VIP floor. I had redesigned it personally, down to every art piece and chandelier. Who counts as important these days? I asked. "Oh, you wouldn't know them," Mom replied. "The Andersons, top law firm. The Blackwoods, old money. Mr. Harrison from the bank. All very impressive people. Thomas Anderson leased 3 of my buildings. The Blackwoods were on the waiting list for my exclusive resort." "Mr. Harrison? His bank was courting my investment team for a bailout." "Right, very impressive," I said. "Exactly," Vanessa replied, missing my sarcasm. "So, you see why you can't be here. What would people think if they knew Dad's failure daughter was here?" "Vanessa," Mom murmured, feigning restraint. "If she had stayed in the family business," Mom continued, "she could have had a real career. Their struggling firm rented office space from me. They were months behind on payments." Just then, Gavin, Vanessa's fiancé, approached. "Eleanor, didn't expect to see you here." "Likewise," I said. "Gavin just made VP." Mom beamed. "Junior VP," I corrected, aware because his bank managed minor accounts of mine. "Well, that's more than what you're doing," Vanessa said. "I thought about this morning's board meeting, where we discussed acquiring that very bank. Something like that, I said. You're making a scene. Mom snapped. Just go. I'll tell Dad you couldn't afford it. Vanessa laughed. I looked past them. At the marble floors I chose. The chandeliers I ordered. The hotel I built. I wasn't going anywhere. Before my mother could respond, the glass doors of the Grand Azure opened with a soft whoosh. Owen, my head of security, stepped outside. Tall, calm, and sharp-eyed. He had been with me since the very beginning, back when I purchased my first struggling boutique hotel and transformed it into a crown jewel. Is everything all right here, Madam CEO? Owen asked, his voice clear and composed. Your usual table is ready. And Chef Michelle is waiting to begin the tasting menu approval. The silence that followed could have shattered glass. Vanessa's perfectly glossed mouth dropped open. My mother tightened her grip on the brass door handle, her knuckles turning white. The scene felt almost cinematic. Owen, I said warmly. Perfect timing. My family was just explaining how I wasn't welcome here. Owen raised an eyebrow, puzzled. Ma'am, you own the entire Grand Azure hotel chain. Yes, I said, turning back to the stunned faces before me. I do. My words hung in the air like thunder. Shall we go inside? I believe you've reserved the VIP floor. My VIP floor. To be precise. Gavin found his voice first, though it cracked with disbelief. This is some kind of joke. You're just a restaurant manager. Actually, Owen interjected with professional ease. Miss Eleanor is the founder and CEO of Azure Hospitality Group. She owns all 35 Grand Azure hotels worldwide, as well as several resort properties and fine dining restaurant chains. Vanessa's designer clutch slipped from her fingers and hit the marble with a sharp clack. But that's impossible. The Grand Azure is worth billions. She stammered. Which, I said, turning to her, makes your comment about me not being able to afford the tasting menu rather amusing. I stepped forward into the lobby. Staff members immediately straightened up. The doorman gave me a respectful nod. At the front desk, Rachel, my manager, offered a warm smile. Good evening, Miss Eleanor, she said. The executive suite is fully prepared for your father's birthday celebration. Thank you, Rachel. I turned to face my family, who stood frozen, still processing the last 60 seconds. Coming? No one said a word. They simply followed in stunned silence, their eyes darting around the opulent space as if seeing it for the first time. Each staff member we passed greeted me by name. I'd always believed in leading by example, never asking anyone to do something I wouldn't. My hands-on approach earned loyalty, and it showed. But your dress, my mother finally managed, her voice weak. I thought. It's custom, I replied gently. Handmade in Paris. About $30, I believe. I have a bad habit of not checking price tags these days. I led them to the private elevator, the one that required a special keycard. I withdrew it from my clutch, the same clutch my mother had insulted earlier. Unlike Vanessa's dress, I added, which is a knockoff. The real Valentino collection hasn't even been released yet. I know because I attended the private showing last month. The elevator opened directly into the VIP lounge. Inside, the birthday celebration was in full swing. Conversations halted. Every head turned toward us. My father, seated at the head table, slowly stood up, his expression a mixture of shock and confusion. Eleanor, what are you doing here? Your mother said you couldn't afford it? I finished, stepping forward. Happy birthday, Dad. I hope you don't mind that I'm crashing the party in my own hotel. There was a long pause. Then Mr. Harrison, the very banker whose presence had supposedly justified excluding me, approached with a look of sudden recognition and relief. Miss Eleanor, he said eagerly, I had no idea you were related to Robert Thompson. We've been trying to arrange a meeting with you for months about that investment loan. Thomas Anderson, another distinguished guest, chimed in next. Robert, your daughter is the CEO behind Azure Hospitality? The one acquiring prime real estate across the city? My father sank back into his chair. The color drained from his face. All this time, we thought you were just a glorified waitress. I gave a small nod. Your words, I believe, from the day I left the family firm. My mother looked as if she might faint. But, why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked, quietly but firmly. You didn't believe in me when I needed your support. Why would I share my success with people who judged me based solely on salary and status? I paused, scanning the room, though, by those standards, I suppose I'm now worth more than everyone in this room combined. Vanessa collapsed into a chair. Her face pale. The villa in the south of France. She muttered. The one I tried to rent last summer. The one that was mysteriously unavailable. Mine, I confirmed. My property manager forwarded your request. They didn't realize the connection. I looked at Gavin. Just like the office building your firm is trying to lease. And mother, your resort membership application? Still on the wait list, I believe. My father tried to speak. But I lifted a hand. I didn't do this to humiliate you. I said, my voice calm. You've done enough of that over the years. I did this because I'm done hiding. I'm done downplaying my success to make you comfortable. I turned to the room. Please, enjoy the party. Everything is on the house, my house. Then I paused. Oh, and Dad? That envelope Vanessa wouldn't let me give you. It contains the deed to a villa in Tuscany. One of my best. Happy birthday. From your failure of a daughter. The next hour unfolded like a scene from a surreal play. The people who had ignored me at countless family events. The ones who had barely made eye contact or offered clipped greetings. Suddenly swarmed. Suddenly. I was interesting, worthy of conversation. Eleanor, we should definitely talk sometime. Mr. Harrison said eagerly. That loan we've been discussing could be mutually beneficial. Perhaps you'd allow me to resubmit a revised proposal? Thomas Anderson cornered me not long after. Miss Eleanor, your firm's recent acquisitions, simply brilliant. I had no idea you were the mind behind it all. I mean, Robert's daughter, who would have thought? The Blackwoods, once too proud to even acknowledge me at holiday dinners, approached with sheepish smiles. About that resort membership, Mrs. Blackwood began. We would be honored, truly honored, if you would reconsider our application. Through it all, my family remained silent, dazed, as if they were still trying to decipher how everything had changed so quickly. Vanessa's fiancé, once so smug and self-assured, quietly slipped out of the VIP lounge when he realized her so-called guaranteed future at her firm depended entirely on a lease that she now had no access to. Gavin, pale and panicked, kept making frantic phone calls near the balcony, likely trying to salvage whatever future he imagined at the bank. One that might be acquired by Azure Holdings within the next fiscal quarter. My mother alternated between teary-eyed pleas to speak with me and desperate attempts to convince the other guests that she had always believed in her daughter's potential. She's always been independent, she gushed. So driven, so focused. I just knew she'd do something big one day. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Her lies were already wilting under the weight of years of dismissal and disapproval. And then, as the party began to settle into quieter conversation, I found my father alone on the terrace, staring out at the glittering city skyline. The cool night air was crisp. The city stretched endlessly before him, a glowing testament to dreams built from rejection and resolve. He didn't turn as I approached, but he spoke. Those buildings, he said quietly, pointing to the high rises that pierced the sky. How many do you own? I stood beside him, not answering immediately. Instead, I looked at them, not with pride, but with perspective. Each window, each light, each floor had been fought for, negotiated, earned. Enough, I replied. The building where the family firm still operates. That one, too. He exhaled slowly. The sound weighted with regret. I was wrong about you, Eleanor. So terribly wrong. I looked at him, really looked at him. The same man who had laughed when I said I wanted to study hospitality. Who had mocked my dreams of creating luxury experiences. The man who had once said, "No daughter of mine is going to wait tables." Yes, I said, you were. There was a long pause. Then, in a voice that was barely more than a whisper, he asked, "Can you ever forgive us?" I turned my eyes back to the skyline, letting the silence stretch. I thought about the years I had spent proving myself not to the world, but to people who had no interest in seeing my worth unless it wore designer labels and brought in billion-dollar valuations. Forgiveness isn't the issue, Dad, I said finally. Respect is. He flinched, just slightly. You never respected my choices. I continued. Never believed in my ability to succeed unless it was on your terms. In your world. And now, only when my success is undeniable. Do you want to acknowledge it? That's not belief. That's convenience. I know, he said hoarsely. I softened, just slightly. You taught me one thing, though. You taught me what not to become. You showed me that success means nothing if it's built on arrogance and exclusion. That's why my team knows my name. That's why I still visit every hotel in person. Why my employees don't fear me, they trust me." He nodded slowly, still not looking at me. "You can tell people your daughter owns the Grand Azure," I said, "if that helps with the family pride. But don't pretend you were ever proud of the journey. You weren't." He said nothing, and that silence was louder than any argument we could have had. I walked back inside, past the stunned guests, through the hotel I had imagined in every detail, from the imported marble flooring to the hand-picked artwork on the walls. I had built this, with no support, no belief from the people who were supposed to be my biggest champions. Tomorrow, everything would change. Vanessa would no longer be the golden child. Her stories, her perfect facade, would crumble under the weight of reality. Her job, her social standing, her carefully curated lies, all dependent on leases and partnerships that I now controlled. My mother would begin rewriting history immediately. She'd pull out old photos, recast her sharpest criticisms as tough love, and attempt to insert herself into my story as a guiding force. But people would remember the way she treated me tonight. Gavin would be updating his resume by morning. I knew my acquisition team would have no mercy. I had taught them to operate with precision and without sentiment. But none of that mattered as much as this moment. I had taken my seat at the table, not because it was offered, but because I had built the table myself. The walls, the roof, the very foundation, crafted by hands they all called unworthy. And that, in the end, was worth more than any delayed applause. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of my penthouse suite, casting golden rays across the cream linens and polished oak floors. I stood by the glass wall, sipping my espresso, looking out over the skyline I now had partial ownership of. Somewhere in one of those buildings, my father was probably still trying to process the night before. Last night had changed everything. My team had sent over the finalized acquisition documents for Gavin's bank. They were on my desk now, just awaiting my signature. The irony was poetic. The man who once told me I didn't understand real business was about to work for me, if he kept his job at all. Downstairs, the staff had already begun preparing for the day's events. Another wedding was scheduled in the grand ballroom, the couple having paid nearly $100 for the Azure experience. I'd personally reviewed the menu with Chef Michelle last month. It was exquisite, just like everything else we curated. I made my way to my private office on the top floor. The elevator chimed softly as it opened to the penthouse level, accessible only with a special key. I stepped into the office I designed down to every detail. Walnut shelves, hand-woven rugs from Morocco, an original Monet hung behind my desk. I sank into the leather chair and picked up the framed photo on the corner, me. At 28, standing proudly in front of the first boutique hotel I ever bought. Back then, it was barely holding on. Outdated, understaffed, and on the brink of bankruptcy. I'd sunk every dollar I had into reviving it. I'd scrubbed floors, fixed plumbing, worked double shifts when staff didn't show. No one knew. No one cared. My family had called it a phase, let her get it out of her system. My mother once said at dinner. But that hotel became the flagship of Azure Hospitality Group. I placed the photo back and glanced at the guest list my assistant had emailed. Tonight, another event. One of our biggest investor galas yet. Names like Rothschild, Kensington, and Lemaire filled the page. Billionaires and power brokers from across the globe. And every single one of them had requested a meeting with me. I smiled faintly, then turned as a soft knock came at the door. "Come in," I said. "Rachel, my front desk manager, peeked in. "Sorry to disturb you, Miss Eleanor. Your family is downstairs. They've requested to see you." I exhaled slowly. "Tell them I'll be down in 10 minutes. Please offer them coffee." Of course. When I stepped into the executive lounge 10 minutes later, the room fell silent. My mother was sitting on the edge of a plush armchair, legs crossed tightly, a paper napkin twisted in her hand. Vanessa was pale, lips pursed, her designer purse clutched so hard her knuckles were white. My father sat nearest the window, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for seeing us," he said finally. I nodded, taking the seat opposite. I let the silence stretch. I'd learned long ago that silence often forces the truth forward. My mother spoke first. "We owe you an apology." "Yes," I agreed. She blinked. We were wrong." Again, I simply nodded. Vanessa looked up sharply. "So, what now? You just get to rub it in our faces?" Make us look like fools? No, I said calmly. You did that on your own. Vanessa flushed. My father cleared his throat. Eleanor, your success is remarkable. Truly, I didn't see it. I was blind to what you were building. You didn't want to see it. I corrected. You measured my worth by titles and assumptions. And when I didn't fit your mold, you dismissed me. He nodded slowly. I did, and I regret it. I'm not here for your regret. I said, I'm not here to gloat or punish. But I will not apologize for the success I earned. I don't owe you humility for finally becoming the person you refused to believe in. My mother dabbed at her eyes. So, what now? Do we just go back to how it was? No, I said. It won't ever be like it was. I've changed. You haven't earned a front row seat in my life just because you now realize what I've built. There was a pause. I'd like to try, my father said. Trying starts with respect. I replied. Respect for who I am now. Not who you thought I should be. It means not speaking to me like a disappointment. Not whispering about me behind glass doors. And not barring me from my own hotel because you think I'm not good enough. My mother looked down, guilt clouding her features. You can attend my events. I continued. You can be part of the public version of my life. But my trust, my closeness, that has to be earned. Slowly, Vanessa muttered. So, you're punishing us? No, I said. I'm protecting myself. That's what boundaries are. They didn't argue. As I stood to leave, I paused at the doorway. Dad, the deed to the Tuscany villa is still yours. Use it. Enjoy it. Consider it my final gift given in the hope of peace. Not reconciliation. He looked stunned. Thank you. I turned back to them. I built this world without you. And I can keep living in it without your approval. But if you want to be part of it now, the door is open, just not without accountability. Then I walked away. As I stepped into the elevator, I looked back only once, catching their faces, full of confusion, awe, and, finally, respect. The door slid shut. This time, I wasn't locked out. This time, I was in control.